Hey guys, what are you holding, Stumpy Daryl? It's a lightsaber. Why are you holding the lightsaber? Cause I'm really stoked for the new Star Wars movie. Daryl, you should know more than anyone else that Walking Dead and Star Wars don't mix. Now go to your room and think about it. Okay, now that that's over, guys, welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be ranking the Series 8 Walking Dead figures from best to worst. Now, to start off, I'm going to say this is a really good series overall, and they've improved on many levels: sculpt, accessories, articulation, but they have had falling downs, and I'm gonna have to rank it. Now, you will be hearing a lot of hate from me. It's gonna seem like I just hate this stuff, but actually, I really love this series, and yeah, it's really probably the best. And some of the figures here that I think are the worst of this series are still better compared to most other Walking Dead figures. Now, to start off in the least category, I'm gonna say Tyrese, the Tyrese exclusive. Now, I don't actually own the Tyrese exclusive itself, but I own pretty much the same thing. The only difference between the figure that came out before in Series 5, yeah. The only difference between him and the new one is a new sculpted arm and then a different painted shirt. Really, that's just not... I thought if they updated his leg articulation in the new one, then it would totally be worth it, and I would buy it up in a second. But they left the articulation in this horrible fashion, and he still looks horribly weird down there. That his legs look stumpy to me, and that doesn't look right. So, yeah, they definitely missed something there. They could have made this figure really good when they changed it up and just had to resculpt, like, legs. Not even the full legs, just like this part here. But that's why he's going in the least category. Now, there is another figure from this wave that reuses the same sculpt, but is slightly different, and that's this Carol here. I wouldn't put her in the least position because she finally got a head sculpt that actually looks like Carol, but I painted her face to be skin-toned instead of the poopy color that they had her before. And this figure's actually pretty good, but it's because it's just another reuse of another older figure, and it's not a very good version. I'm putting her in second worst of this series just because of those few factors. Now, if they had her with the regular face paint instead of the black mud that they put on her, then it would have been good, and she would look like this, and I would say perfect. But she really isn't worth your $16 to $15 in this way. Yeah, I just don't see it, because this plastic molded piece on her looks like crap. The new gun is cool, but reuse of the wrong type of crossbow is a little bad. I mean, accessory-wise, it's cool to get these two accessories, but technically speaking, this isn't just another reuse. This rifle's not all that great, and she's just a rather plain figure. So they didn't even originally give her her knife that comes here. I had to add my own. There. Yeah. So, yeah. So she's going in second worst position, right next to Tyrese. But who's coming after that? Let's see. This one was a little harder for me to consider who should be third worst, but I gotta say, going through all of the little differences between these figures, I came to the conclusion that it's Eugene. Eugene is, I mean, look at this figure. It's nicely sculpted. It looks nice. He looks cool, as cool as Eugene could get, and it just looks really aesthetically pleasing. But the fact that he can't hold stuff, and the fact that his articulation is so chunky that he can't really move right, or move to a position where he could even get this gun so that he can hold double-handedly, it makes him crap. And he came with some cool accessories, a helmet, but it doesn't fit him, a backpack that fits loosely, and then a machine gun. It's pretty cool, but it's not that good. The new articulation is not really useful with him because of the stupid jacket that they put looping down his pant leg here. If this was a rubber piece, he could kick forward, but he can't even do that. So he loses because of articulation and hand sculpt. Everything else is pretty on base. His face looks right. I mean, the paint looks pretty cool, but that's just it. And then the choice of outfit probably also helps loan him to be the third worst of the series. Yeah, that's definitely a factor there. Now, who's in the fourth position? I would say that's this guy here. Now, a lot of people seem to have liked this figure when he first came out, and probably a lot of people started hating him more once they found out some stuff about his character, but his character aside, I hate his character too, but if we were going by whose character I preferred, he would be right here in the back, behind Tyrese, and Tyrese would be further forward, and I'd probably have Dale next to him, but that doesn't count because you gotta be fair with the action figure and not the characters. As a figure, he's okay, he looks cool, and for the articulation, he's still better than this guy, and he's not a reuse of something, he's completely new sculpt, which is awesome, but he lacks an articulation, and he can't really hold stuff, and his paint is a bit off. Like, his head is very splotchily painted, and this has happened to many people's paints, so see that? It's worse on the masked head. But yeah, that right there is a bit of a problem. Then his hands are really tiny, so that they can only hold his pole, and not very well at that. But then when you try to get the machine gun in his hand, it fits in kind of, but you can only get like a one-handed pose, and you can't even bend his arm to a 90-degree angle to hold it so that like his armpit's jamming it into his side, so it's just more like a hip shot with his machine gun. So that doesn't work. And then the pole not being able to be held in his hand very easily is also a downside, because that's a very loose fit. And the head swap is good, but it seems like they made his head a little small. Like, if you were to compare it to anyone else's, let me grab Dale here, because he's very loose. He seems a little on the small side. I don't know why they made it smaller, but it's odd. And then the fact that they chose this one ball joint for two heads, it works, but I keep having trouble with it where it gets stuck in one head and I have to pull it out. And many other people have that problem too. So this guy gets fourth worst position, or I guess that would be medium position, because of his articulation and a little bit of the paint. The sculpt and face paint is good. The hair paint is a problem. And then the worst part on him here is the arm articulation. And the knee articulation is good, but the kicking forward articulation sucks. He can't even really, like, sit in anything. If you saw someone sitting like this, you'd probably think, that guy needs some help. Go help him up. I think he fell or something. Help, I've fallen and I can't get up. Yeah, so that's why he gets fourth worst or medium position. And, of course, his accessories are kind of cool. You get this pole, staff, whatever, that is pretty accurate with him. Even though it's mis-sculpted, I believe there should be some middle part here that's sort of spiral sculpted, I suppose. And then the machine gun doesn't really work with him, but it's cool to have that little accessory. Then his hoodie / head sculpt part here, that's cool. So that's why he gets the fourth position, because he has pretty cool accessories. He also came with a backpack, and it fits on him fairly well. But he gets, fourth because he's not good enough to go anywhere ahead of that, but he's not so bad that I'd have to put him behind the guys who were reused. So in the next position, I'm going to put Dale. This actually, I really like Dale. Now we're in the point where I think this figure is really cool. I don't like the character so much, but the figure is really awesome. First off, we get a nice chair, which is well sculpted. We got binoculars and a rifle, which I didn't bring here for some reason, but that was cool. Even though the rifle was a repaint of the original rifle that came with many figures before him. But that didn't really matter, because even though he lacks an articulation in some places, he can still kick forward, He can still do the splits. His knees bend to a good degree. The only thing he's really lacking in articulation is he can't bend his arm up too much. And then with sculpt, he's pretty much dead on. He looks a little bulky, but I'm not going to fault him for that because I like the way that looks, and I feel like I'm getting more for my money that way. And then his head, it looks just like the actor Jeffrey DeMunn, which turned out perfectly. I think that right there is enough to give him a good qualification for the series. And the hat we got fits on him fairly nicely and is a perfect accessory to go with Dale. So he gets 5th position, which is pretty much in the good area and the recommend area. Now we're moving to the top 2. I would normally have trouble with this one because of a few things here, but because we finally got a really cool Rick, I'm going to put him in 1st place, even though, yes, we've had a lot of Ricks before, and yes, this Rick does reuse parts. What we finally get is awesome. But let's go to the one that I chose for 6th place. I chose Bob for 6th place because he's a really cool figure of a really cool character, and the production of his figure is really nice, as long as you didn't get one that's leg broke off, because that happened to a lot of people. But we got 2 machetes, which I think is awesome. You get this gun holster that's attached to him that is useful if you have a gun for him. And then a jacket that's removable that shows his cool undershirt and gives him much more articulation. Articulation-wise, this guy is the bomb. I mean, he can do more articulation than probably most other figures, which definitely overqualifies him from everyone else here because their articulations are lacking in most points. But this guy is just hyper-articulated for a Walking Dead figure. I wouldn't say for like a Marvel Legends figure, but for one of these 5-inch Walking Dead figures, he's definitely the winner of these guys. I wouldn't say the number 1, but 2nd from the series. Probably the 2nd of overall figures because he's really cool. And then the sculpt that they used for his pose looks really nice. Yeah, I think he looks like very naturalistic in the way he's standing. And that works perfectly. And then you get 2 very fitting accessories here with his stump and his leg part, even though he was in a different costume when that happened, but what are you going to do? Came with 2 machetes, that was awesome. And so accessory-wise, he was awesome. Sculpt-wise, awesome. Articulation-wise, awesome. And paint was perfect on him. I think there's like nothing that I can complain on for this guy. There are some that have problems, but for this guy, I think he looks dead on. I forget the actor's name every time, but he looks dead on Bob Stuckey. Oh yeah. I also like the added knife they put on his belt. That was cool. Okay, now in the number 1 spot. Yay, Rick Grimes. Now, this guy gets this number 1 spot for many different reasons. First off, I love the look. This look on Rick Grimes was awesome. Having the jacket, the beard, the fluffy hair. Everything about this guy right here was magnificent. But then the way they executed it in figure form looks awesome as well. Even though it'd probably be cooler if he had this zipped up jacket, that would probably end up looking too bulky, so I like the way he looks here. And then we get 2 very good accessories with him. We get his machete, which he used many times, even though the handle should be sculpted differently. We get an AK-47, which is really magnificent and definitely a new sculpt, and you can't even, whereas this gun here that came with Morgan looks kind of like the gun that came with Carol, and then that also kind of looks like the gun that we got with Eugene. Rick's gun is it stands out from all of them, being an AK-47. We've never seen one like this before in the Walking Dead figures, and that's awesome. We have gotten one similar-ish with comic series Abraham, but that thing was huge and clunky looking. This one is perfectly sleek and fitting, and it works with this figure very well. Articulation-wise, Rick Grimes is awesome, as well as he came with his pistol as well, which is perfect, and that looks good. But articulation-wise, he's very well off. His arms seem to have special types of articulation, just so he can hold his rifle right. He has big joints, which for some people they've considered it unsightly. For me, I think it looks fine. Really, when you're looking at him like this, do you really notice that dark joint there? I don't. It looks perfect, and it gives him just the right amount of bend on each arm so that he can hold his gun perfectly. He's got wrist articulation, which is inhibited by the jacket, but I'd figure that. And then the sculpt is really where he wins, because this jacket is very well sculpted. Each little fold, each little ruffle, then the fluff he has on the neck, and then his face sculpt and face paint is executed perfectly so that it actually looks like Andrew Lincoln, which we haven't really gotten a figures sculpt slash paint that looks like Andrew Lincoln yet. I mean, well, now we have one, this guy. And I'd highly recommend him for anyone who's a Walking Dead fan. Even if you don't collect the figures, if you have this guy in your hand, you're definitely going to say, okay, I'm going to start collecting figures. Now, he does reuse one part from a previous figure, that's the bottom half here. But I don't fault them on that, because that was a really well sculpted bottom half, and it's well articulated as well. I wouldn't say they failed by reusing that at all. The shirt, the underneath looks nice. It's painted fairly well. I think it could probably be a shade either darker or lighter, I don't remember, but it's not perfectly on, but I'm okay with that. And pretty much overall, this guy is just awesome. And for complaints with this guy, I can't actually think of any. Everything that doesn't work the way Bob Stuckey's articulation works is easily explainable by the way the parts are sculpted. And it has to be sculpted that way if you wanted him in the jacket, which I definitely wanted him in the jacket. And maybe technically Bob is a better figure, but something about finally getting this Rick probably gives me the feeling that he's a much better figure. But I think just the poses you can get with him alone make him look awesome, and the way this jacket and beard makes him look, he definitely looks good in any pose you stick him in, and yeah, I'd highly recommend him. So he gets number 1 position because he's da bomb. Okay, so tell me what you guys think about my listing here. Which one did you guys consider the best, and which one did you guys consider the worst? Give me your overall list if you can, and personally, I think overall this is probably the best series that we've gotten so far. I can't think of any other series from these Walking Dead figures that have been better, and tell me if you guys can. So make sure to check out my other videos, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.